The first cry hits the penthouse at 5:47 in the morning. It is not a gentle sound. It is not the kind of cry that eases you into waking. It splits the early Manhattan light like something breaking, sharp, sudden, and immediately doubled, then tripled. 3 voices, all at once. Elias Beaumont does not flinch. He is already on his knees on the marble floor of the nursery, his white apron catching the pale gold of the dawn coming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, his dark eyes steady, his hands already moving, one reaching for Zaiah, the eldest by 4 minutes, who is standing with both fists balled at his sides like a tiny boxer preparing for the worst morning of his life. The other hand finds Omari, the middle one, who has somehow gotten his left foot tangled in the hem of his own blanket and is sitting on the floor looking personally offended by gravity. And Caden, the youngest, the quietest until he is not, is pressed against the leg of the custom Italian crib, face red, mouth wide open, producing a sound that seems physically impossible for someone who weighs 19 pounds. Elias does not say hush, he does not say stop, he does not raise his voice to cut through the noise. He hums, one low, unhurried note, barely louder than a breath, the kind of sound you make to yourself when you are not trying to be heard, when the sound is not for an audience, but for the air between 2 people who already understand each other. Zaiah's fists loosen, just slightly. Hi viewers, have you ever watched someone stay completely calm in a moment that would break most people, and wondered, what happened to them that taught them how to do that? Omari stops pulling at the blanket. He looks up at Elias with the specific, suspicious expression of a 14-month-old who is not yet willing to be comforted, but is considering the offer. Caden keeps crying, but he turns his face toward the sound. That is how it starts. That is how it has started every morning for the past 11 days in this penthouse on the 53rd floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan where the elevator requires a private key and the nursery furniture costs more than most people's first cars. A Dior mobile hangs above the cribs, its gold animals catching the light. 3 pairs of Burberry soft-sole shoes sit lined up by the door, each pair barely the size of Elias' palm. A Louis Vuitton diaper bag slouches against the wall like it is too expensive to stand up straight. The triplets own things they will never remember owning. And every morning in the middle of all of it, Elias Beaumont kneels on the cold marble and hums until the crying stops. He has no idea that this morning is different. He has no idea that the man who owns this penthouse, who owns, by most accounts, a significant portion of 3 industries and the fear of approximately 400 employees, is standing in the doorway. Gabriel Voss does not announce himself. He never does. He stands with one hand resting against the doorframe, his dress shirt already on at 5:47 in the morning, his sleeves rolled to the elbow in a way that looks deliberate even though it is not. There is a Rolex on his left wrist that he does not look at. His jaw is set. His eyes dark, unreadable, the kind of eyes that have learned to give nothing away because giving things away has historically been expensive, are fixed on the figure kneeling on his nursery floor. He watches. He has watched before, 3 times this week, always from the doorway, always without being seen. He tells himself he is assessing, confirming the new staff member is competent, this is reasonable, this is the kind of thing a father does. This is not entirely what he is doing, but Gabriel Voss has a very developed capacity for reasonable explanations. Elias shifts his weight, still on his knees, and reaches into the front pocket of his apron. He produces, with the quiet confidence of a man who has thought about this already, a small wooden rabbit, handmade, worn smooth at the ears, not Dior, not Burberry, not anything with a logo. Zaiah's eyes go directly to it. Elias holds it out, he does not offer it, he simply holds it at Zaiah's eye level and waits. The room drops 1 full register of noise. Zaiah takes 3 steps forward on uncertain legs, reaches out with both hands, and takes the rabbit. He sits down immediately on the marble floor, as if the rabbit has weight that requires sitting down to manage. Omari watches his brother sit, then sits too. Barbies do this, they see sitting and understand that sitting must be the correct response to whatever just happened. Caden is still crying, but softer now. Confused by the sudden quiet around him, he looks at his brothers, he looks at Elias. Elias hums again, the same note, 1 note. Caden sits down. The room is quiet. Not the tense, held breath quiet of a pause before more crying, the real kind, the settled kind, the kind that feels like something was resolved rather than just interrupted. Gabriel does not move in the doorway. He has employed in the 14 months since the triplets were born 7 different child care professionals. All of them were qualified, all of them had references. 2 had published research on early childhood development, 1 had worked for a European royal family, which had seemed relevant at the time. None of them lasted longer than 3 weeks. The triplets are, by every professional assessment, extremely challenging. They are healthy, they are bonded. They are, in the specific way of children who have grown up in the same body before they grew up in the world, permanently attuned to each other's states in a way that means when one cries, all 3 cry, and the combined force of 3 simultaneous 14-month-old distress signals in an enclosed space will functionally dissolve the composure of any adult who is not already prepared to be dissolved. Elias Beaumont was not supposed to be here at all. He was assigned to the building's general household staff pool, first-floor concierge backup. He had been moved upstairs 11 days ago as a temporary solution while Gabriel's primary childcare contractor was being replaced, because the building's house manager had reviewed the staff assessments and noted that Elias was the only one who had written, under the line asking about stressful environments, the single word, fine. Not I work well under pressure, not I thrive in dynamic situations, fine. The house manager had found this either deeply reassuring or deeply alarming and had not been able to decide which, but the triplets needed someone that morning and Elias was available. He had not been reassigned since. Now Elias reaches into his other apron pocket and retrieves a small cloth square, the same faded blue cloth he has tucked in that pocket every single morning. He uses it to wipe Omari's face, then Caden's, then gently dabs the corner of Zaiah's eye without interrupting the rabbit inspection. His movements are not hurried, they are not performative. They are the movements of someone who has already thought through the sequence and is simply executing it, the way you make coffee in the morning, not because making coffee is exciting, but because the morning requires coffee and you know where everything is. There is a particular kind of strength that looks like nothing from the outside. Gabriel is beginning to understand that he has been looking at it for 11 days and mistaking it for something smaller than it is. Zaiah holds up the rabbit. He holds it up in Gabriel's direction, not because he has seen his father, but because Zaiah holds things up when he wants them appreciated. He holds things up toward the light. Gabriel takes 1 step back into the hallway. Not because he is afraid. Gabriel Voss has not been afraid of anything in a very long time, or so he has organized his life to suggest. He steps back because something just happened in the center of his chest that he does not have a category for, and Gabriel Voss does not stand in doorways experiencing things he cannot categorize. Elias does not look up. He is already moving on, settling Omari into his lap with the practiced ease of someone who has learned exactly how much weight a 14-month-old carries and has adjusted their center of gravity accordingly. He is humming again, the one note, the same one. Omari leans back against his chest like he was always planning to end up there. Zaiah and Caden are watching their brother with the serious, evaluative attention of board members observing a presentation. Then Zaiah stands up, walks 3 unstable steps, and drops himself directly into Elias' lap alongside his brother. There is not technically enough room for 2 toddlers in one person's lap. Elias makes room anyway, adjusting silently, neither of them commenting on the physics of the situation. A beat later, Caden crawls over and sits on Elias' foot. It is, in the particular emotional math of a room where no one is crying anymore, completely devastating. Elias looks down at the 3 of them, this strange, warm pile of small humans arranged on and around him, with the total confidence of children who have decided a person is safe, and something crosses his face. Not happiness, not satisfaction, something quieter than both, something that a person allows themselves when they do not know they are being watched. In the hallway, Gabriel Voss stands very still. His hand is on the wall. He is not assessing anymore. He is looking at his sons, really looking at them, the way you look at something when you suddenly understand you have been seeing it wrong, and they are calm. Still, they are leaning against someone like he is geography, like Elias is a place they already know. Gabriel has tried to hold them, he tries every day. Zaiah goes rigid in his arms, Omari turns his face away, Caden cries harder. He has been told this is normal, that some children take longer to bond with parents, that patience is required, that he should not take it personally. He takes it personally. He takes it quietly, internally, in the specific and expensive way of a man who takes everything personally and shows nothing, but he takes it. And here is Elias Beaumont, 26 years old, Omega, rejected by his previous pack, assigned to this floor as a temporary solution, sitting on a cold marble floor with all three of Gabriel's sons in his lap, looking at them like they are the most ordinary miracle he has ever seen. The Rolex on Gabriel's wrist reads 5:59. He has a 6 a.m. call with his partners in Singapore. He needs to be at his desk in 3 minutes. He needs coffee. He needs the documents his assistant sent last night that he has not yet read. He has, by any reasonable accounting, at least 14 things that require his attention more immediately than this hallway. He does not move. Elias hums the note again, just once, low and even. All three boys close their eyes at almost exactly the same moment, not sleeping, just resting, just being still, like the sound is a signal they have been waiting for and finally received. Gabriel's jaw tightens. His hand drops from the wall. He turns and walks toward his office, his footsteps quiet on the hardwood of the corridor, because he walks quietly in the mornings now, without having made a decision to do so, without having noticed when he started. He sits at his desk, opens the Singapore documents, his eyes move across the first paragraph. He reads the same sentence 4 times. He does not know what the wooden rabbit is, where it came from, or why it works. He does not know the specific sound Elias makes when Caden pulls at his apron strings, a low, patient exhale, just on the edge of a laugh, like a person quietly delighted by something they would never say out loud. He does not know that Elias arrives at 5:30 every morning, 17 minutes before he is required to, and uses those 17 minutes to sit on the nursery floor in the dark and simply be there, no toys, no preparation, just presence, because he discovered on the 3rd morning that the triplets wake calmer when the room has already been occupied by someone still. He does not know any of this. But standing in the hallway, watching his sons close their eyes, he knows one thing. The next staff review is in 2 weeks. He picks up his phone, he sends one message to his house manager, 4 words. Keep the current arrangement. He puts the phone down. In the nursery, Elias is still humming. And somewhere in the quiet of a Midtown Manhattan morning, in a penthouse full of things that cost more than most people earn in a year, 3 small boys are breathing slowly, in almost perfect unison, against a man who has not yet realized that the Alpha King himself is listening from the other side of the wall. Zaiah throws the wooden rabbit at 7:14 in the morning, and it hits the wall 3 inches from a piece of abstract art that cost Gabriel Voss $40,000. Elias catches it on the rebound without looking up. He is changing Caden, a task that requires the focused diplomacy of a hostage negotiation, because Caden has recently discovered that he has opinions about being horizontal, and those opinions are strong and loud, and expressed with every square inch of his body simultaneously. Elias has one hand on Caden's stomach, the other moving with practiced speed, and he catches the rabbit with the crook of his elbow in the specific way of someone who has caught this rabbit before. Zaiah watches, his face carries the expression of a scientist whose hypothesis just failed in an interesting way. He picks up a Dior plush elephant instead. Elias finishes with Caden, sets him upright, and holds out his hand towards Zaiah. He does not ask for the elephant, he does not say anything, he simply holds out his hand, palm up, like a question with no pressure attached. Zaiah thinks about it. This is one of Zaiah's defining characteristics. He thinks about things. At 14 months old, he applies more visible deliberation to small decisions than most adults apply to large ones. He stands in the center of the room with the Dior elephant pressed to his chest and his eyes on Elias' open palm, and he thinks. The elephant stays with Zaiah. Elias lowers his hand. Fine, fair enough. Omari, who has been sitting quietly in the corner, engaging in the deeply focused activity of trying to remove his own sock, suddenly stands up, walks directly into the center of the room, and sits back down for no apparent reason. This is also, at this point, familiar. What is not familiar is the sound from the hallway, a door, precise and quiet, footsteps, the specific, measured rhythm of Gabriel Voss moving through his own home at speed. Elias does not react. He is cross-legged on the floor, Caden now in his lap, Zaiah circling him with the elephant at a distance of approximately 3 feet, maintaining that specific toddler orbit that means I am not ready to come closer, but I am considering it. Omari has given up on the sock and is lying on his back looking at the ceiling with the philosophical calm of someone who has accepted the ceiling. The footsteps stop outside the nursery. Elias keeps his breathing even. He has learned that the triplets read rooms. They read the air. They read whoever is holding them, wherever the nearest adult is, and they adjust accordingly, which means that if Elias tenses, even slightly, even in a way he thinks is invisible, Zaiah's circling tightens and Caden's hands grip harder, and the whole carefully constructed calm of the morning starts to come apart at the edges. So Elias does not tense. He reaches into his apron pocket, the left one this time, not the right, and produces 3 dried blueberries in a small ceramic bowl. He sets the bowl on the floor between himself and the doorway. Omari rolls over from the ceiling. He spots the bowl. He becomes extremely interested in being upright. Zaiah stops circling. Caden leans forward from Elias' lap and points at the bowl with the intensity of someone making a formal identification. The footsteps resume. Gabriel passes the doorway without stopping. The sound of his office door not slammed, never slammed, but closed with a finality that communicates everything a slam would, fills the hallway. The triplets look at the door. They look at Elias. Elias moves the bowl 2 inches closer to Omari, who has been crawling toward it with the focused determination of a much larger person. The room does not collapse, the morning does not end, nobody cries. But Zaiah, thoughtful, deliberate Zaiah, who considers everything, sits down with his elephant and looks at the door to the hallway for a long, quiet moment before he looks away. Elias sees it. He does not name it out loud, but he sees it. He picks up the wooden rabbit from where it landed against the baseboard and sets it on the floor beside Zaiah without comment, and Zaiah, without looking at him, picks it up. That is the whole exchange. By 8:30, the triplets are fed. The room is relatively intact. A Burberry bib has been deployed as a secondary floor covering in a way that its original designers certainly did not intend, and a Louis Vuitton teether is sitting in a bowl of warm water on the kitchen counter, because Caden has recently escalated his relationship with that particular object to something requiring sanitizing twice daily. Elias is on his knees, wiping the marble with the efficiency of someone who has stopped noticing how often he is on his knees. He is the only staff member still here. 2 others come at 9, a second-floor housekeeper who does not come above the 49th floor by personal preference, and a part-time cook who arrives, prepares things, and leaves with the contained energy of someone contractually committed to not getting involved. They are both competent. They both do their jobs, they both disappear. Elias does not disappear. This is not in his job description. His job description, which he has read exactly once and has not thought about since, covers childcare assistance, light nursery upkeep, and availability during overnight hours on a rotating schedule. It does not say anything about arriving 17 minutes early. It does not say anything about the wooden rabbit, which is not the property of the Voss household, and which Elias washes by hand each night in the staff bathroom sink. It does not say anything about the dried blueberries, which he buys himself every 3 days from a green market on 9th Avenue on his days off, because the triplets liked them the first time he offered them, and he has not stopped offering them since. He is not doing this for the job description. He does not examine why. He has learned, over the 26 years of his life, that examining why he does the things he does for people is a path that ends in a specific kind of sadness, and he is not interested in arriving there before noon. By 9:15, Zaiah is asleep on the floor, not in the crib, on the floor, with the wooden rabbit under his cheek, and Elias is sitting 2 feet away, back against the wall, Caden half asleep in his arms and Omari sitting between his knees pulling at the laces of his shoes with the methodical focus of a child who has a goal and respects the process. The penthouse is quiet. Manhattan hums 40 stories below, distant and indifferent, the whole city moving at its particular speed that has nothing to do with what is happening on this floor. Elias looks at the 3 of them. He looks at Zaiah's face, completely open in sleep, the furrowed, worried expression that he carries when he is awake completely gone, his features smooth and unguarded, and so young that it stops Elias for a moment every time. He looks at Caden, who has wrapped both fists around a section of Elias' apron, and is holding it the way you hold something when you are not sure the world is permanent. He looks at Omari, who has given up on the shoe and leans sideways, and is now resting his temple on Elias' knee, still awake, looking at nothing. There is a name for what Elias is feeling in this moment. He does not say it. He lets himself have it quietly. From behind the closed door at the end of the hall, very faint, almost inaudible, comes the low sound of Gabriel's voice, clipped, measured, English pressed into a precise instrument on a call to somewhere 12 time zones away. The voice is contained, it is controlled, it is professionally empty of everything except information. Omari lifts his head. He looks at the door. He looks at Elias. He puts his head back on Elias' knee. Elias keeps his face very still. Because the question that just crossed Omari's face, small, wordless, the exact question a 14-month-old asks with his eyes when he looks from a closed door to the person sitting with him on the floor, is not a question Elias knows how to answer. And it is not a question he is supposed to be thinking about. He is here to take care of the children. That is the job, that is all the job is. He picks up the worn wooden rabbit from beside Zaiah's cheek, gently, barely touching it, careful not to wake him, and turns it over in his hand once. Sets it back down, exactly where it was. The hall is quiet again. But the question is still in the room, and it does not leave with the silence, and Elias sits with it because there is nowhere else to put it. Tomorrow, the same schedule, the same floor, the same 3 small boys who reach for him with the absolute confidence of children who do not yet know that people leave. What Elias does not know, what he could not know, sitting against this wall in the quiet of a Manhattan morning, 1 child asleep on the floor and 2 others using him as furniture, is that on the other side of the closed door at the end of the hall, Gabriel Voss has stopped talking. The call ended 4 minutes ago. He is sitting at his desk in the silence, and he is not reading the documents, and he is not reaching for his phone, and his eyes are on the closed door of his office, beyond which, down the hall, 3 boys are breathing slowly in the arms of a man Gabriel hired 11 days ago and has not yet spoken a single word to. He should speak to him, basic management, he should have spoken to him on day 1. He does not understand why he has not. He picks up the documents. He puts them back down. It is the 9th morning in a row that Omari has woken up first. Not with crying, Omari does not cry first. Omari wakes up and lies in his crib looking at the ceiling with the same philosophical calm he brings to most situations, and then he waits. He waits until Zaiah wakes up, and Zaiah cries, and then Caden cries, and then Omari, who has been awake and patient through all of this, finally cries too, but only once Elias is already in the room, as if he has been waiting to confirm that crying will have an audience worth the effort. Elias knows this now. He knows which cry is Zaiah's, the high, escalating one that starts mid-breath. He knows Caden's, the lower, rhythmic one, persistent as a metronome. He knows Omari's, 2 syllables, always 2, like a word in a language Elias is still learning. He knows that Zaiah sleeps with his face turned left, that Caden's hands curl open when he finally goes still, that Omari, in the last minutes before waking, makes a sound like a question. He knows these things the way you know the layout of a room you walk through in the dark, not because you studied it, but because your body learned it before your mind decided to. He is in the kitchen at 5:28 this morning, 2 minutes ahead of his own early schedule, heating the bottle for Caden. Caden still takes one in the morning, and the other 2 watch this with expressions of elaborate disinterest that do not fool anyone when he hears it. Not crying, the other sound, the one from the hallway. Gabriel's door opening. Then footsteps, but slower than usual, not the purposeful 6 a.m. Singapore rhythm. Slower, more like a person who is moving without a destination. Elias keeps his eyes on the bottle. He tests the temperature on the inside of his wrist, adjusts the angle, waits. The footsteps pass the kitchen. They stop. Elias turns around. Gabriel Voss is standing in the entrance to the kitchen in dress pants and a white shirt that is not yet fully buttoned, his hair still carrying the evidence of sleep in a way that makes him look, briefly, startlingly, like a person who has not yet had time to become the version of himself that the rest of the world gets to see. They look at each other. This is the first time they have been in the same room simultaneously, aware of each other, with no children between them as context. It is approximately 4.5 seconds long. Gabriel's eyes move from Elias to the bottle, back to Elias. Caden, Elias says, 1 word, explanation complete. Gabriel says nothing. He walks to the cabinet on the far left, the one above the second counter, which Elias has never opened because he has no reason to, and it did not occur to him to wonder what was in it, and takes out a mug. He goes to the coffee machine. He does not offer. Elias does not expect him to. This should be the end of the exchange. 2 people in a kitchen with separate purposes. Gabriel presses the start button on the machine. He stands with his back to the room and his hands flat on the counter, and he says, without turning around, in the same voice he uses on the Singapore calls, "Are they sleeping?" It is not quite a question. It lands more like a fact he already knows but is verifying. "Until 6, Elias says. Gabriel nods once, still facing the machine. The coffee starts, the sound fills the kitchen. In the nursery down the hall, Omari makes the question sound, then quiet again. Gabriel's hands press harder against the counter. Barely, just enough. Elias picks up the bottle and leaves the kitchen. He does not look back. But he carries the image down the hallway with him, Gabriel Voss, with his shirt not yet fully buttoned, pressing his hands flat on a counter, as if he needs something solid to press against at 5:30 in the morning. As if the day has not yet started, and he is already holding himself in place. Elias does not examine it. He has learned not to examine things that are not his to examine. He goes into the nursery. He lifts Caden from the crib. Caden, who is awake and has been awake and makes a sound of complete satisfaction at being lifted, as though being lifted was the exact outcome he predicted, and is pleased to have confirmed. Elias sits in the low chair by the window and settles Caden into the crook of his arm and offers the bottle, and Caden takes it with both hands and the focused reverence of a person eating their favorite meal. The private language term starts here, though Elias has no name for it as a term. He calls it the still count. Not out loud, only internally. The still count is the number of consecutive seconds of quiet in the room. He counts them silently when he is sitting with the triplets in the early morning, because he has found that counting the quiet is a way of protecting it. When he is tracking the count, he does not move unnecessarily. He does not shift. He does not make sounds that have no purpose. The room stays still because Elias is being still, and the boys, all three of them, even in sleep, respond to his stillness the way water responds to a level surface. 14 seconds, 20, 31. Zaiah stirs. Elias shifts his attention without moving. 48. Zaiah settles. 53 seconds. Omari asks his question sound again, twice, then quiet. Elias is at 61 seconds, his record for the full 3 awake, which has only happened once, on the 7th morning, which he counted to 88 before Caden dropped the bottle, when the door at the end of the hall opens again. He does not break the count. Coffee smell reaches the nursery a few seconds later, faint through the gap under the door, Gabriel moving down the hall to his office, the door. The count breaks at 63. Caden releases the bottle and looks toward the door. Looks at it for a full 2 seconds. Then looks at Elias. Elias meets his eyes, says nothing, offers the bottle again. Caden takes it, looks at the door one more time, then back to the bottle. Decision made. Elias starts the count again at 1. He does this for 23 more mornings. He watches the particular shape of the triplets' days, the things they reach for and the things they look away from, the sounds that settle them and the sounds that don't, the moment every afternoon when Zaiah's energy peaks and must be redirected before it catches like a fire, the 3-minute window after the midday nap when all 3 boys are simultaneously soft and reachable and will lean against anything warm. He learns these things because they are necessary to know. He tells himself this. He also notices, and does not tell himself anything about this, because he has decided not to, that every morning between 5:40 and 5:50, Gabriel's office door opens for approximately 90 seconds before closing again. He does not know what Gabriel does in those 90 seconds. He does not look. But on the 14th morning, he is walking back to the kitchen with an empty bottle in his hand when he passes the office door, and the door is open 2 inches, and through those 2 inches, he sees Gabriel Voss sitting at his desk in the dark, no lamp, no screen, just the ambient light from the city 40 stories below, doing nothing. Just sitting. Elias walks past. He washes the bottle, he goes back to the nursery, he sits down. He starts the count at 1. And somewhere, in the 2-inch gap of understanding that just opened in his chest without his permission, he puts one careful, deliberate hand and holds it closed. Because Elias Beaumont has learned, in the 26 years of his specific and instructive life, that the things you notice about people when they do not know you are looking are the most expensive things in the world. And he cannot afford what he just saw. It is a Tuesday. Elias will later not be able to explain why he remembers it as a Tuesday, specifically, except that Tuesday is the day the Green Market on 9th Avenue has the best dried blueberries, and he had been to the Green Market that morning before his shift and the small paper bag was still in the outer pocket of his bag by the door, and he was thinking about it, about which pocket he had put it in, whether the bag had torn at the corner, when Gabriel Voss walks into the nursery. Not to the doorway, into the room. This has not happened before. Elias is on the floor with Omari, who is engaged in the project of stacking 3 soft blocks on top of each other with a concentration that suggests architectural ambitions. Zaiah is by the window with the rabbit, doing what he does standing very still, looking out at Manhattan from 53 floors up with the serious, evaluating expression of someone taking inventory of an inheritance. Caden is asleep in the crib, which is unusual for this hour, because Caden fought sleep for 40 additional minutes this afternoon and arrived at it with the dramatic exhaustion of someone who had been wronged. The room is quiet, the still count is at 37. Then Gabriel is inside it. He does not say anything. He moves to the center of the room, not toward the cribs, not toward the window, just the center, like a person finding their footing on new ground, and he stands there. Elias keeps his hands on the blocks. Omari is preparing the 3rd placement. He is aware, with every part of himself, that he has been very carefully not listening to for 23 mornings, of exactly where Gabriel is standing, the specific radius of him, the way the room's air pressure seems to have reorganized itself around this new point. Omari places the 3rd block. The stack holds. Omari turns immediately to look at Elias, because this is what he does. He completes things and then looks for someone to have witnessed it, and Elias is already looking, already nodding, one small deliberate nod that means, yes, I saw, yes, that counted. Omari grins, all 4 teeth. Gabriel, 4 feet away, makes a sound. Not a word, not quite. Something between an exhale and an attempt at one. The sound a person makes when they see something they did not expect to see, and the reaction comes out of them before they can organize it into language. Omari's grin stays. He turns and looks at Gabriel. Gabriel, who he has seen and unseen for 14 months, who exists in his world as a presence behind closed doors and careful footsteps, and the specific quality of attention that a child feels even when they cannot name it. Omari picks up one of the blocks. He holds it out toward Gabriel. The room holds its breath. Elias does not move. Gabriel looks at the block, at his son's hand. The Rolex catches the afternoon light, his jaw shifts. He crouches. He does it slowly, deliberately, the way a person crouches when they are not sure the floor will hold them. He goes down to Omari's level, to the level of the blocks and the marble and the small extended hand, and he holds out his own hand. Omari drops the block into it. Then he turns around and picks up another block and starts the stack again. Done, transaction complete, moving on. Gabriel holds the block. He holds it the way you hold something when you do not know if you are allowed to keep holding it. He looks at Omari's back, at the serious, concentrating posture of his middle son, who has already forgotten he handed him a block and is focused entirely on the next one. Something crosses Gabriel's face. Elias sees it. He sees it and he understands it, and he looks back down at his hands, immediately, because some things are not yours to witness, even when they happen directly in front of you. By the window, Zaiah turns from the Manhattan skyline. He looks at his father. This is new. Zaiah looks at the door. Zaiah looks at the hallway. Zaiah looks at the space where his father is not. But this, looking at the space where his father is, this is different, and Elias can feel the shift in the room the way you feel a change in air pressure before weather arrives. Gabriel is still crouching. He becomes aware of being looked at. He turns slowly and meets Zaiah's eyes. Zaiah does not look away. He does not walk toward him. He does not reach. He stands by the window with the wooden rabbit held against his chest, and he looks at his father with the specific, considering, unhurried gaze of a child who is deciding something important. Gabriel does not move. He stops breathing, almost. Elias can see it from where he is sitting, the stillness that comes over Gabriel like a weather system, and he understands, with a clarity that he would rather not have, exactly what is happening in Gabriel Voss's chest right now, because it is legible from 4 feet away in the way that only the things people work hardest to hide are legible, when you know how to look. He should not know how to look. Omari places the 2nd block, checks, places the 3rd. The stack tips, falls, all 3 blocks on the marble. The sound breaks the moment. Zaiah looks at the blocks, then back at the window. He turns, unhurried, and looks back out at Manhattan. Gabriel exhales. He stands, he sets Omari's block back on the floor with the other 2. He is careful. He is very careful, like everything in this room is something he could damage without meaning to. He straightens, he does not look at Elias. He walks toward the door. He is almost through it when Caden wakes up. Not gently, Caden does not do things gently. He wakes up mid-cry, the way a car alarm starts, no build, just immediate and full, and filling every corner of the room. Zaiah turns from the window. Omari looks at the crib. Gabriel stops in the doorway. Elias is already moving up from the floor, smooth and unhurried, crossing the room to the crib, reaching in and lifting Caden with both hands in one practiced motion that takes approximately 2 seconds and produces, by the third second, a reduction in volume. Not silence, reduction. Caden is not easily quieted after a sleep. He is warm and confused and has opinions about the transition from sleep to waking that he expresses at length. But Elias turns him inward, chest to chest, one hand at his back, and begins walking, not packing. Walking a slow, even circuit of the room, the same path each time, corner to corner, past the window, past the cribs, back again. The still counts opposite, the moving count. Caden's cries space out, lengthen at the edges. Elias does not look at Gabriel. He walks the circuit. He can feel Gabriel in the doorway the way you can feel weather coming, not with your eyes, but in the specific awareness of your skin, the air that exists between your body and another body, and the particular charge of it. The crying drops another register. Then another. Caden's fists, which have been gripping Elias' apron with both hands, slowly open. By the third circuit, he is not crying. By the fourth, he is looking over Elias' shoulder at the room with the heavy, unfocused eyes of someone who has come to terms with being awake and is now taking in the evidence of the world. His eyes find his brother's. Omari has rebuilt the block stack. Zaiah is back at the window, but turned inward now, facing the room. Caden's eyes find the doorway. Find his father. Gabriel has not moved. He is still in the frame of the door, one hand on the wood, and he is watching Caden the way a person watches something they are not sure will last, with a specific quality of attention that does not want to press, does not want to disturb, just wants to stay. Caden looks at him. 3 seconds, 4. Caden turns his face and tucks it against Elias' neck. It is not fear. The boys do not tuck their faces in fear. When they are frightened, they go rigid, they reach, they produce sound. This is different. This is the kind of hiding that children do when they are overwhelmed by something good. Elias keeps walking the circuit. He still does not look at the doorway. But he says quietly, in the same tone he uses for the still count, for the one note, for all the things in this room that are not loud, because they do not need to be loud to be real. He says it to Caden, but it lands in the room. He's still there. 3 words. He does not know why he says them. They come out of him the way the hum comes out of him, before the decision to produce them, already in the air. Caden does not look up. But his hands find Elias' apron again, and this time they do not grip. They rest. In the doorway, Gabriel's hand drops from the wood. He does not say anything. He does not need to, and Elias knows this, and the knowing sits in his chest in the complicated, weighted way of knowing something you were not prepared to know. Gabriel turns, walks down the hall, his footsteps as always quiet. Elias completes the circuit one more time. Stops at the window, stands next to Zaiah, who is still looking out at the city with his rabbit and his small serious face. Below, Manhattan moves, 40 stories of distance between this window and all of that motion. Elias looks at the reflection in the glass, his own face, Caden against his shoulder, and behind them, at the far edge of the reflected room, the doorway. Empty now. But he said he's still there. And some part of Elias, in the part of himself he has been holding closed since the 14th morning, does not know if he was talking to Caden. The almost moment does not announce itself. That is the thing about almost moments, the ones that matter, the real ones, they do not come with any signal you can prepare for. They arrive in the ordinary texture of a Thursday afternoon, somewhere between the second nap and the early dinner, in a room where the light is going amber and the city outside is starting its evening shift, and nothing about the hour suggests that anything is about to change. Elias is at the kitchen counter. He is making the triplets' dinner, soft sweet potato, very small pieces, the way Caden has recently decided is the only acceptable configuration, and he is at the part of the prep that requires both hands and most of his attention, and he is fine. He is in the rhythm of it. The still count in the nursery is high, he can feel it from here, all 3 boys down for the afternoon nap within 4 minutes of each other, which is a thing that happens maybe twice a week and which Elias, when it happens, treats with the reverence of a minor miracle. He does not hear Gabriel come in. He does not hear because Gabriel does not make sound when he moves through his own home in the afternoons, a fact Elias has noticed and filed away and declined to examine, and so the first thing Elias is aware of is not a footstep or a door, but a presence, the specific weight of another person in the room behind him. He goes still. Not dramatically, his hands stop, that is all. "Don't stop," Gabriel says. His voice is different in the afternoon, less compressed. The particular professional blankness of the Singapore call voice is not fully present. It is like a light that has been turned down rather than off, and the dimmer version of it sounds, unexpectedly, like a person. Elias starts cutting again. He hears Gabriel cross the kitchen, the cabinet above the second counter, the mug, the coffee machine, which is, by now, a sound as familiar to Elias as the triplets' cries, and occupies approximately the same place in the morning architecture of this floor. They are in the same kitchen again, same arrangement, Gabriel at the machine, back to the room. Except it is not morning. "How long for the sweet potato?" Gabriel says, still not a question. 10 minutes, Elias says. Gabriel is quiet. The machine runs. Elias cuts the sweet potato into the small pieces, Caden-specific pieces. He is aware, with no part of himself he can identify as a sensory organ, of the exact distance between himself and Gabriel, 3.5 feet. The kitchen is long 12 feet of counter good Manhattan space, bought with the same care as everything else in this penthouse, but they are occupying the same 12-foot corridor, and 3.5 feet is not a large number. Gabriel picks up his mug. He does not go to his office. He stays at the far end of the counter, and he drinks his coffee, and after a moment he says, still looking toward the window at the far end of the kitchen, "Zaiah, has he been?" He stops, reorganizes. Is he talking yet? Elias considers the question. He sets down the knife. He turns around. This is the first time they have been face to face in the same room since the morning in the kitchen, and that morning Elias had been looking at the bottle, and Gabriel had been looking at the machine, and the face to face had not technically occurred. It is occurring now. Gabriel is leaning against the counter with the mug in his hand and his eyes on Elias with the same directness, the same quality of full attention that he turns on everything, documents, calls, the triplets in the doorway, and Elias, who has been watched by Gabriel for weeks now without being spoken to, finds that being the full object of this attention is a different and more substantial experience than peripheral awareness of it. "A few sounds," Elias says, "not words yet, but he's got intention." Gabriel absorbs this intention. He knows what he wants to say. He's working on the delivery. Something shifts in Gabriel's expression. Slight, the corner of his jaw, his eyes. "That sounds like him," Gabriel says. And in those 4 words, "that sounds like him," Elias hears the whole of it. The 14 months of watching from doorways, the 90-second office door, the block held carefully in a large hand, the specific interior grief of a man who knows his son and cannot reach him, and knows it, and has been knowing it quietly. Elias picks up the knife. He starts cutting again. He stacks things, Elias says, when he's working something out, doesn't matter what blocks, his shoes, the cereal pieces. If something is bothering him, he'll stack the nearest objects until he figures it out. Gabriel is quiet. Caden's easier to read, Elias continues. He does not know why he is continuing. His mouth is making decisions without asking. He tells you everything with his hands, what he wants, what's wrong, what he thinks is funny. You just have to watch his hands. And Omari. Elias is quiet for a moment. Omari waits, he says finally. He watches everyone and waits until he knows what's needed, and then he does it. He's been doing it since the first week. Gabriel sets down the mug. He handed me a block, Gabriel says, quietly, almost to himself. He does that, Elias says, when someone's been standing in the same place too long, he gives them something to do. The silence that follows is not the kitchen silence of 2 people with separate purposes. It is a different kind. It is the silence of a door that has opened a crack, and both people in the room are very aware of the crack, and neither of them is pushing it, and it is there anyway. Gabriel is 3 feet away. Then he is closer. He has moved. Elias did not see it. It happened in the moment between one sweet potato piece and the next, and he is not 3 feet away anymore. He is close enough that Elias can see the specific quality of his stillness, the way Gabriel Voss goes still when he is deciding something. Not relaxed, held. Elias' hands are on the counter. He does not move them. From down the hall in the nursery a sound, one note, 2 syllables. Omari. Awake. Then Zaiah, the ascending cry, building. Then Caden, who needs no build-up, who simply joins the world at full volume. Elias moves. He wipes his hands on his apron. He covers the sweet potato. He is already turning toward the hallway. Gabriel's hand comes up. He does not touch Elias. His hand rises and stops 3 inches from Elias' arm, and then it drops. A motion that started as one thing and became something else on the way. Elias stops. He looks at Gabriel's hand, the dropped hand, the space it just passed through. Gabriel's jaw is tight. He looks toward the hallway. I'll go, he says. Elias does not move. Gabriel looks at him. Something in his expression is asking a question he has not yet decided to say out loud, asking it in the specific, direct way of a man who is not practiced at asking. With you, Gabriel says, I'll go with you. The hallway is waiting. The boys are awake and the crying is building the way it always builds, the 3-part architecture of it filling the penthouse with the particular sound that has, until this moment, been Elias to answer alone. Elias looks at Gabriel. He looks at this man who stands in doorways at 5 in the morning, pressing his hands flat on counters, who holds building blocks like they are something breakable, who said that sounds like him in a voice that contained 14 months of distance and the specific, private cost of it. Okay, Elias says. One word. They walk down the hall together, not close, not touching, just the same direction at the same time toward the same sound. Elias does not know what is about to happen when Gabriel Voss walks into that nursery, beside him, instead of behind a doorframe. He does not know if the boys will reach for him, if Zaiah will look at him the way he looks at the window, if Caden will turn his face away or toward. He does not know if this helps or if this costs, something he has not yet calculated the price of. He only knows the crying is waiting. The hall is 12 steps long, and somewhere between step 1 and step 12, something is going to shift in this penthouse that has not shifted in 14 months. He takes the first step. Gabriel takes it beside him. Zaiah screams the moment Gabriel crosses the threshold. Not the regular crying, the other kind, the kind that starts in the chest and comes out like something tore, high, sharp, immediate. His small body goes rigid, his fists come up, and the wooden rabbit drops from his hands and hits the marble and rolls under the crib. Gabriel stops walking. Elias does not stop. He crosses the room in 4 steps, goes straight to Zaiah, drops to one knee and puts both hands on the floor in front of him, not on him, in front of him, palms flat, the way you show a frightened animal that your hands are empty. Zaiah's crying does not stop, but it changes register, from sharp to sustained. Omari is standing in his crib, both fists on the rail, watching. Caden is already at full volume. Elias looks up once, just once, a half-second glance at Gabriel that says, "Stay there, don't move, give the room a moment," and Gabriel, who is standing at the edge of the nursery with his shoulders locked and his face doing nothing because his face has learned to do nothing, reads it and goes still. Elias hums. The single note, the same one. Zaiah's breath catches. He looks at Elias. His face is wet and his chest is heaving with the aftermath of the cry that just came out of him, the kind of cry that surprises even the person doing it, and he looks at Elias the way you look at something stable when the ground just moved. Elias keeps the note going, steady, low. Caden's crying drops a register. Then another. The room does something, the temperature of it, the specific quality of the air, it settles. It does not fix. Nothing in the room is fixed. Gabriel is still at the edge of it, and Zaiah is still standing with his face wet, and the wooden rabbit is still under the crib where nobody has reached for it yet. But the settling is real, and Elias holds it with both hands, metaphorically, the way you hold water. He reaches under the crib, gets the rabbit, sets it on the floor in front of Zaiah. Zaiah looks at it for a long moment. Then he picks it up. He does not sit down. He stands there with the rabbit at his chest, and his eyes on Elias and his breathing slowly, slowly returning to something like normal, each breath a little less ragged than the one before, his small shoulders dropping by fractions. Behind him, Gabriel has not moved. Elias lifts Caden from the crib. Caden, who is still making sound but has gone from crying to a sustained commentary on the situation, and stands. He turns. He looks at Gabriel. And for the first time since Elias has been on this floor, since the first morning he walked into this nursery with nothing but a wooden rabbit and a one-note hum, he sees it clearly. Not the Alpha King, not the man with the Rolex and the Singapore calls, not the person behind the closed office door at 5 in the morning. He sees a father who walked into his children's room and made the crying worse. And is standing in it anyway. Gabriel's jaw is set. His eyes are on Zaiah's back, Zaiah, who has turned away from him now and is facing the window, rabbit held tight. The muscle at the side of Gabriel's face is working, slowly, like a person chewing on something they cannot swallow and cannot spit out. He does not leave. That is the thing Elias registers with the part of himself he has been holding closed. Gabriel does not leave. Every professional before Elias left, not physically, contractually, but they left the hard moments. They managed from a distance. They put space between themselves and the thing that was difficult and called it professional judgment. Gabriel is standing in it. Caden shifts in Elias' arms and looks at his father. His commentary drops to a low, trailing murmur. Omari, who has been watching from his crib with his hands on the rail, lets go of the rail. He sits down in the crib. He picks up his own soft block. He holds it over the rail. Looking at Gabriel. Gabriel looks at the block. He looks at his son. Something in his face shifts, so small, so fast, that a person not watching for it would miss it entirely. A crack, not in the blankness, under it. He walks to the crib. He takes the block. Omari immediately reaches for another one. This goes on for 40 seconds, Omari producing blocks, Gabriel taking them, each exchange brief and unrepeatable, and Elias stands with Caden and watches and understands, with a clarity that has no comfortable place to land, that he is watching a child teach his father how to stay. By the time the room is quiet, the evening light has gone from amber to grey. The three boys are settled, Omari back in his crib with the blocks arranged around him, Caden asleep against Elias' shoulder, Zaiah at the window with the rabbit, back still turned. Gabriel is standing beside the crib. He is not holding a block anymore. His hands are at his sides. He is looking at Zaiah's back. He says, very quietly, to the room and to no one, "I don't know how you do this." It is not directed at Elias. It is the kind of sentence that comes out when a person forgets for a moment that they are not alone, when the thing they have been carrying internally finds the nearest exit without asking. Elias should let it land and disperse. He should let it be the kind of statement that dissolves into the air of the room. He says, "You stay, that's the first part." Gabriel turns. He looks at Elias for a full 3 seconds, the specific, full-focused directness that Elias has been the object of before, that he has learned to look back at without shifting. Then he looks away. He nods once, down at the floor, like he is accepting a verdict. He walks to the door. He stops, his back is to the room. "Tomorrow," Gabriel says, "I want to be here, in the morning." Elias says nothing. "Early," Gabriel says. 5:30, Elias says. Gabriel nods, he leaves. Elias stands in the grey light with Caden asleep on his shoulder and listens to the footsteps go down the hall, and he counts. Not the still count, just the beats, the specific, even rhythm of Gabriel Voss walking away. And the fact that arrived quietly during those 40 seconds of block passing, that Gabriel came back to the crib 4 separate times, and each time he came back his steps were a fraction quieter, a fraction more careful, as if he was learning the weight of the floor. As if he was learning how to be in this room. Elias looks at Zaiah's back. Zaiah is still facing the window, but his left hand, the one not holding the rabbit, is hanging at his side, and his fingers are open. Not reaching, not refusing. Just open. Elias does not say anything about it. He does not name it. He holds Caden, and he watches Zaiah's open hand, and he understands that some things announce themselves only in the smallest possible way, in the difference between a closed fist and an open palm, and that missing them is the easiest thing in the world. He does not miss it. But he also knows that tomorrow morning is coming, and Gabriel will be in this hallway at 5:30, and something in this penthouse has been set into motion that has no clearly mapped destination, and Elias Beaumont, who learned a long time ago that things set into motion do not always land where you expect, is standing in the grey light of a Thursday evening feeling the specific interior turbulence of a man who has made a promise to himself about examined things, and is watching that promise require more effort, than it has ever required before. He starts the still count. 1. Gabriel is in the hallway at 5:22. 8 minutes early. Elias hears him before he sees him, not footsteps, the sound of someone standing. The quality of a hallway occupied. He is coming from the kitchen with the bottle for Caden, and the hall is dark except for the ambient city light coming through the window at the far end, and Gabriel is standing outside the nursery door with his arms at his sides, and his shirt fully buttoned, and his eyes on the door. He looks like a man preparing for something. Elias walks past him, opens the nursery door, goes in. After a moment, Gabriel follows. The triplets are awake, Omari in his usual post-question sound state, Zaiah already sitting up with the rabbit, Caden making the low sustained noise that means he is awake and cataloguing his grievances. The room is dim. The Manhattan dawn is 20 minutes away. Elias goes to Caden first, lifts him, offers the bottle, starts the count. Gabriel stands just inside the door. He stands there for 3 full minutes, and Elias does not direct him, because this is not something that can be directed. Some things have to be navigated by the person doing the navigating. Then Gabriel moves. He walks to Zaiah's crib. He does not reach in. He puts one hand on the rail, the same gesture Omari used, both hands on the rail, looking, and he stands there. Zaiah looks up at him. Not away, at him. Gabriel says nothing. He does not try to pick him up. He does not make any of the sounds that adults make when they want children to like them. He just stands at the rail with one hand on the wood and lets Zaiah look. Zaiah holds up the rabbit. Gabriel looks at it. He reaches in very slowly and touches the ear. One finger, barely contact. Zaiah pulls it back. Gabriel removes his hand. He stays at the rail. And this specific sequence, the offer and the withdrawal and the staying, is the moment Elias will not be able to stop thinking about for the next 6 days, because Gabriel did not react. He did not pull back his hand with the energy of a person rejected. He removed it the way you remove something from a surface where it was never asked to be, and then he stayed, and the staying was so quiet and so deliberate that it had a different quality than anything else Gabriel has done in this nursery. The still count is at 18. Zaiah stands up in the crib. He pulls himself up on the rail, both hands, the way he does when he wants to see over the edge of things. He looks at Gabriel from standing height, which is still 3 inches below Gabriel's chest. Then Zaiah does something he has never done. He reaches out and touches Gabriel's wrist. 1 hand, 3 fingers. A touch so light it barely registers on the skin, and he pulls his hand back immediately, and he sits back down in the crib and picks up the rabbit and looks at the window. Done, transaction complete. Gabriel's hand on the crib rail is white at the knuckles. Elias sees this and looks away. Caden finishes the bottle. Elias shifts him, starts the morning circuit without being asked, the slow measured walk that moves the waking out of him. Caden looks at his father over Elias' shoulder with the calm, interested expression of someone observing an experiment. Omari is watching Gabriel with the evaluative patience that is his defining characteristic. Then Omari stands up in his crib, reaches past Gabriel's arm without looking at him, and picks up a toy from the ledge just behind Gabriel's shoulder, a small toy he could not have reached without Gabriel being in the way. He used Gabriel as part of the geography, as an extension of the room. As if he already belongs here. Gabriel does not move, his jaw is working again. The muscle, the slow internal chewing of something vast and wordless. They stay like this, the 5 of them, in the grey pre-dawn of a Manhattan morning, Caden on Elias' shoulder and the circuit, Gabriel at the rail, Zaiah with the rabbit, Omari with his toy, for 22 minutes. The city below starts its morning. The light comes up slow. Nobody cries. At 6:03, Gabriel straightens. He looks at Elias, and Elias looks back, and the exchange that passes between them in that second is wordless and complete. Gabriel says, "Same time tomorrow." Not a question. "Same time," Elias says. Gabriel leaves. Elias stands in the growing light, and he is aware, with every part of himself, including the parts he keeps under careful administration, that the morning that just happened cannot be unhappened, that Zaiah's 3 fingers on Gabriel's wrist are in the room still, the way sound stays in a room after the source is gone. He starts the count. 1. Caden, over his shoulder, is looking at the door. Not the hallway door, not anywhere specific. Just out, forward, the way you look when you feel something coming that you do not have a word for yet. Elias keeps walking the circuit. He keeps the count. He does not let himself look at the door. But his steps on the 7th circuit bring him parallel to it, and in the fraction of the second it takes to pass, he sees, without looking for it, without meaning to, that Gabriel has not walked away. His shadow is in the gap under the door, still, unmoving. He is standing on the other side. Elias completes the circuit. He does not stop, he does not say anything, he keeps the count running. But the question is in the room now, and it is a different question than the one Omari asked with his eyes on a Thursday morning. This one does not have 2 syllables. This one does not end. The crash happens at 9:47 on a Monday morning. Zaiah climbs out of his crib. He has not done this before. He has tested the rail, measured it, considered it from various angles the way he considers everything. This morning he decides the measuring is complete, and he goes over the side, and he lands badly, not hurt, not even close but off balance, and he goes down hard on both hands on the marble, and the sound of it brings Omari and Caden up in their cribs immediately, and what follows is the kind of 3-way crying event that erases all other sound in the known world. Elias is there in 8 seconds. He was in the kitchen. He moves through the hall at a speed that is not quite running, because running in a penthouse scares children, and Elias never scares the children, but it is at the outer edge of walking, and he is through the door and on the floor with Zaiah before the second wave of crying peaks. Zaiah's palms are red, not broken, not bleeding. Elias checks both hands with the focused efficiency of someone who has thought about this possibility. Because he has thought about this possibility, he has thought about most possibilities. It is one of the things the job description does not mention, and confirms: red, not damaged, strung, startled. He wraps both hands around Zaiah's and holds them. Not checking anymore, just holding. The crying drops. Omari and Caden, who have been standing in their cribs performing their sympathetic crying with full commitment, look at Zaiah, look at Elias, recalibrate. Omari sits down. Caden keeps going. Caden is committed to the bit, but the quality of it changes. Lower, less urgent. Elias sits on the floor with Zaiah's small hands in his, and does not speak and does not hum and does not do the one note. He just holds the hands, still, warm. The door. Gabriel comes through it at a different speed than usual, not measured, immediate. He is in the room before the sound of the door is finished, his eyes going straight to the floor, to Zaiah, to Elias, hands around Zaiah's. He takes in the scene, he raids it in 1 second. He goes to the floor. Not to the edge of the room, not to the doorway. He goes all the way to the floor, right there, marble and all, dress pants and everything, and he sits down with his back against the crib and his legs in front of him, and he looks at Zaiah. No instruction, no attempt to intervene. He just arrives at floor level, at child level, at the level of this moment, and he is there. Zaiah looks at him. Red palms in Elias' hands. His father 6 inches away on the floor of the nursery, in a $3,000 suit. Zaiah turns his hands over inside Elias. He looks at his palms, then he looks at Gabriel. He holds out his hands toward his father. Not the rabbit, not a toy, his own hands. The things that landed hard and strung and have been held, and are now being offered for something Zaiah does not have a word for, because the word he needs is one he will not learn for years. Gabriel reaches out. He takes Zaiah's hands in both of his, carefully, like they are something he has been wanting to hold for 14 months and has not known how to ask for. Zaiah looks at his own hands inside his father's. He looks at Elias. Elias nods, the same small nod, the one that means, yes, I see, yes, that counted. Zaiah looks back at his father. He does not cry, he does not reach away. He sits on the marble floor of the nursery with his red palms held in his father's hands, and he breathes. Caden's crying stops. Omari, watching all of this from his crib with the accumulated wisdom of a 14-month-old, who has been waiting patiently for something he could not name, lies down, closes his eyes. The room goes still. Not the managed stillness of the still count, not the held breath stillness of 3 professionals maintaining composure, the real kind, the kind that is not produced but arrives, the kind that means something has completed that was incomplete. Gabriel is looking at his son. He is looking at Zaiah the way Elias looked at all 3 of them on the first morning, with the expression a person allows themselves when they do not know they are being watched, like someone seeing something they have needed to see for a very long time. He is being watched. Elias is right there, 3 feet away on the same marble floor. Gabriel does not seem to mind. This is the thing that lands in Elias with the weight and precision of something falling from a height. Not that Gabriel is showing this, but that Gabriel is showing it here, in front of him, without the particular armor of a man who has spent 14 months showing nothing to anyone. Time does something in that room. It does not stop. That is a thing that happens in stories more than in reality, but it slows. It moves with more weight per second. The light is all the way up now, full Manhattan morning, and the Dior mobile above the cribs turns slowly in the ventilation current, and Caden is looking at the ceiling, and Omari is almost asleep, and Zaiah's hands are held by his father. Elias realizes his own hands are empty. He realizes it the way you realize you have been holding something tightly for a long time, in the release, in the absence, in the strange lightness of hands that are no longer needed for the thing they were holding. He should get up, he should give this space. He should do the invisible, competent, unremarkable thing, stand, check on Caden, begin the breakfast sequence, remove himself from this moment that is not his. He does not get up. Gabriel turns and looks at him. Not the assessment, not the directed, informational attention. Something else, something that exists at the far edge of what Gabriel Voss allows himself in the presence of other people, which Elias understands is a narrow category. You caught him, Gabriel says. Elias shakes his head slightly. He caught himself on the way down. He's tougher than he looks. He looks like his mother, Gabriel says. It arrives without warning, not to Elias, not to Gabriel. It just comes out. Present tense, not past, and in the half-second after it leaves Gabriel's mouth, something flickers in his expression, the recognition of what he just said, and where he said it, and to whom. Elias stays very still. Gabriel looks back at Zaiah. Zaiah has closed his eyes. His hands are still in Gabriel's. His breathing is slow and even, and he is either asleep or the closest thing to it while still sitting upright, which is a thing he apparently can do, and which is very Zaiah. She left when they were 6 weeks old, Gabriel says, quiet, level, a fact he is delivering to the room, not to anyone else, just away. She found it was not what she wanted. The room does not answer. I don't tell people that, Gabriel says. I know, Elias says. Gabriel looks at him again, the same look, longer. How do you know, Gabriel says. Elias considers. Because you've been doing this alone, and you've been doing it like someone who decided a long time ago that doing it alone is just the category it's in. The silence after that is not empty, it is very full. It is the specific, loaded fullness of a silence that has received something true and is processing it. Gabriel looks down at Zaiah. He does something Elias has never seen him do. He adjusts his grip on Zaiah's hands, shifts them gently, carefully, until Zaiah's small fingers are curled inside his, and he rests his thumb on the back of Zaiah's hand. Still just resting. Just there. Elias stands up, he goes to Caden. He lifts him from the crib. He begins the circuit, slow and measured, and as he walks he keeps the count, and the count gets to 31 before Caden's weight goes fully heavy with sleep, and Elias stands at the window looking out at the city. Below, Manhattan moves, does not know, does not need to. He stands at the window with a sleeping child on his shoulder, and he does not look at the man on the floor behind him, and he does not need to, because the room has already told him everything he is not ready to know. The still count reaches 47. Then Gabriel says, so quiet it almost does not happen, Elias. First time. His name in Gabriel's mouth, for the first time in 28 days. Elias does not turn. What did you do, Gabriel says, before this? Elias is quiet for a moment. Then, I was with a pack in Jersey. I was their household omega for 4 years. Gabriel waits. They rejected me when the alpha's brother needed a placement, Elias says. Standard practice. I was reassigned to the building pool, that's how I got here. The city moves below. Gabriel does not say I'm sorry. He does not say that's unfair. He does not produce the particular verbal padding that people produce when they receive information about someone else's wound and do not know what to do with it. He says their loss. 2 words. They land with a weight so specific and so direct that Elias has to keep his eyes on the window for a beat longer than necessary because the window is outside, and outside is safe, and safe is what he needs for this 1 second. He turns around. Gabriel is looking at him. Zaiah asleep in his arms. He moved, at some point in the last 4 minutes, from the floor to holding him, and Zaiah is folded against his chest, with his face turned in and his red palms resting open against his father's shirt. And Elias Beaumont, who has been holding himself closed since the 14th morning, who has been counting seconds and walking circuits and tucking the examined things away, looks at Gabriel Voss holding his son and understands, with a certainty that is no longer something he can put a hand over, that some doors do not close from the inside. Omari opens one eye. Looks at Elias, looks at Gabriel, looks back at Elias. Closes his eye. The room is quiet. The still count keeps running. The morning it changes is not dramatic. That is the thing nobody tells you about the moments that change everything. They do not arrive in weather. They do not announce. They happen in the ordinary middle of a Wednesday, while the coffee is running and the light is doing what morning light does in a Midtown Manhattan penthouse, and the triplets are awake, and the world is exactly itself. Elias is on the floor. He has been on the floor for 26 minutes, and Caden has been constructing something with the soft blocks that Elias cannot identify architecturally, but which Caden is committed to with his whole body. Omari is asleep, a late morning short nap, rare, taken without warning, the way Omari does most things, quietly and on his own schedule. Zaiah is by the window with the rabbit and Manhattan. Gabriel comes in at 8:14. He does not come in every morning now. He comes in most mornings. He has, over the past 6 days, learned the still count, not by being told about it, but by watching Elias and absorbing the rule. Do not add to the room, do not disrupt, lower your footprint and let the space be what the children need it to be. He has gotten better. He is not good yet, but he is better, and better is a direction. He comes in, he goes to Zaiah's window. He stands next to his son. He does not crouch, does not reach, does not perform anything. He stands next to Zaiah and looks at Manhattan and says nothing. Zaiah looks at the city. Then he holds up the rabbit. Not out toward Gabriel, up toward the light, the way he holds things when he wants them appreciated, the way he holds things up for the room. Gabriel looks at the rabbit. He says, "That's a good rabbit." Zaiah lowers it, holds it to his chest. He leans by a centimeter, maybe 2, into Gabriel's leg. Gabriel does not react. He does not make a sound or a movement. His hand stays at his side. He receives the lean the way you receive something given without ceremony. You accept it, and you protect it, and you do not make it large because making it large might make it small. Elias, on the floor with Caden and the blocks, sees this. He sees it and puts it somewhere. Caden places his final block, the structure, whatever it is, holds. He looks at Elias. Elias nods. Yes, counted. Caden looks at his father at the window. He looks at Zaiah leaning. He picks up one block, stands up on unsteady legs, walks across the room, 3 wide, wobbling steps, the walk of a person learning to trust the ground, and stands in front of Gabriel. He holds up the block. Gabriel takes it. Caden goes back, picks up another block, walks it over. He does this 4 times. All 4 blocks transferred by hand from the floor to his father, one at a time, each trip a minor physical triumph. By the 4th trip, Caden is breathing hard from the effort, 14 months old, and the room is large, and his legs have opinions about the crossing of it, and he stands in front of Gabriel and puts the last block in his father's hand and looks up. Gabriel is holding 4 blocks. He is looking at his youngest son, looking up at him with the specific, open-faced look of a child who has completed a task and wants to know what it meant. Gabriel crouches. He puts all 4 blocks on the floor between them. He looks at Caden. He says quietly, "Stack them." Caden looks at the blocks, looks at Gabriel. He sits down, he picks up the first block, he places it, the second, the third. He looks at Gabriel before the 4th one, checking. Gabriel nods, once, the same small nod Elias uses, the one that means yes, I see, yes, that counted. Caden places the 4th block. The stack holds. Caden makes a sound, not a word yet, not quite, but something that exists in the space where a word is going to be, something triumphant and surprised and completely his own. Gabriel makes a sound back. It is not a word either. It is the sound of a chest that has been held very tight for a very long time, releasing something that had no other exit. Elias looks at the window. He does not watch this, not because it is not his to watch, because some things are not improved by a witness. Some things need the room to themselves to fully arrive. He looks at Manhattan, he keeps the count. 31, 32. He hears the blocks fall. Caden knocked the stack over in his excitement, which is always how it ends, and both of them, father and son, make a sound at exactly the same moment. Gabriel's is low and short, involuntary, gone before it's finished. Caden's is long and gleeful. Elias keeps looking at the window. 33. From the window reflection, he sees Gabriel stand. He sees Caden looking up at the standing height of his father. He sees Gabriel crouch again, immediately, without hesitation, because standing too tall above a child who is looking up at you is a thing Gabriel has figured out without being told, and this is the thing about watching someone learn. Sometimes they learn fast. 37. He hears Gabriel say low, again. He hears the blocks being stacked. 38, 39. He hears Caden, that almost word again, clearer this time, 2 attempts at the same sound, working on the delivery just like Zaiah. Both of them apparently take their time with things until they have them right. 40. Behind him, Gabriel says, Elias. Elias turns. Gabriel is on the floor. Caden is in his lap, fully in, not at the edge, not a diplomatic distance from sitting in lap, but completely in, both legs draped over Gabriel's knee, leaning back against his chest with the blocks arranged between them. Zaiah is still at the window, but he has turned halfway into the room. Omari is stirring from the short nap. Gabriel looks at Elias with Caden in his lap and he says, the still count, how high? Elias looks at him, 88, once. Gabriel looks at Caden, at the blocks. I want to try. Elias comes away from the window, he goes to Omari, lifts him, settles him, sits against the wall. The room goes quiet. Gabriel and Caden with the blocks, Zaiah turning slowly back toward the room, Omari drowsy and warm and tilting sideways toward Elias' shoulder, the light full and steady on the marble. Elias starts the count. 1, 8, 9. Zaiah takes 3 steps away from the window, stops, considers, sits down in the middle of the floor. 17, 18. Caden leans his full weight back into Gabriel's chest. Gabriel's arm comes around him, not a performance, not a motion designed to be witnessed, just the body doing what physics requires when something leans against you. You hold it. 30. Omari is asleep. 35, 36. The mobile turns. Manhattan hums below, 40 stories of distance, indifferent and continuing. 41. Gabriel says nothing. He does not move. He holds Caden in the circle of his arm and lets the room be what it is and does not try to manage or contain or direct it. 48. Zaiah lies down on the floor. Not in the crib, on the floor on his side, the rabbit tucked under his cheek, the same way Elias found him sleeping on the 3rd morning. His eyes are open, but barely. 53. Elias looks at Gabriel. Gabriel is looking at Zaiah on the floor. His jaw is doing the slow, internal working that Elias knows now, knows what it means, knows what it costs, knows what is being chewed on that cannot be swallowed or released. 58. Gabriel looks at Elias. They hold eye contact for exactly 3 seconds. Gabriel says nothing. He does not need to. The thing he is communicating is not a thing that exists in language yet. It is in the category of things that the body understands before the mind gives it a name. And Elias, who has spent 28 days in this penthouse, learning the language of things that are not said, reads it without difficulty. He looks away first, because looking away is the thing he can still choose. 63. Caden is asleep. 67, 68. Zaiah's eyes close. 70. The room is 3 sleeping boys and 2 adults, and the morning light, and the mobile turning, and the city below doing its indifferent, continuing thing. 75. Gabriel says barely sound at all, the rabbit. His mother left it, Elias says, quiet as the count. It was the one thing in the crib when I got here. Gabriel absorbs this. He takes it everywhere, Elias says. I know, Gabriel says. The count keeps. 80, 81. At 83, Gabriel does the thing. He does not say anything, he does not announce. He reaches into his jacket pocket, the one on the inside, close to the chest, the one you use for things you carry carefully, and he takes out a small object. A block, one of Caden's soft blocks. He sets it on the floor next to the rabbit beside Zaiah's cheek, gently, without disturbing the sleeping boy. He says, barely audible, for when he wakes up, so the first thing he sees is something that was placed there on purpose. Elias cannot speak. He looks at the block beside the rabbit. He looks at the man who put it there. He looks at all three sleeping boys arranged in this room in the morning light, and he understands, with the full and undefended understanding of a person who has run out of room to put things, that Gabriel Voss was never the closed door. He was never the cold voice or the Rolex or the careful, managed distance. He was a father sitting in the dark at 5:30 in the morning, pressing his hands flat on counters. Holding himself in place. Waiting for permission to stay. Elias closes his eyes. 88. He opens them. 88, he says. Gabriel looks at him. Elias says it again, softer, that was 88. Gabriel looks at the room, at his three sons, breathing, at the rabbit and the block and the light on the marble. He says all it took was staying. Under 11 words, quiet enough to be a thought. The thesis arrives not in a declaration but in a breath, and the breath belongs to both of them, and the room receives it, and nothing in the penthouse is the same as it was before the first morning. Elias Beaumont walked in with a wooden rabbit and a one-note hum and knelt on this floor. The count runs to 91 before Caden stirs. It is a Tuesday. A specific, unremarkable, ordinary Tuesday, 3 weeks after the morning of 88, and the Green Market on 9th Avenue has good blueberries, and Elias is back from it by 5:15, which is 10 minutes earlier than his own early schedule, because Caden has recently decided that dried blueberries are the most significant item in his world, and Elias does not want to be the reason the blueberries are not there. He is in the kitchen at 5:20 with the paper bag on the counter, and the bottle warming and the still count at 0, because the boys are asleep, and the count does not start until someone is awake. He hears the office door. Footsteps, not the measured, purposeful rhythm. The morning rhythm, slower, unhurried, the version of Gabriel's footsteps that belongs only to the hour before the world asks anything of him. Gabriel appears in the kitchen entrance. Shirt not fully buttoned, hair still carrying sleep, the Rolex on his left wrist catching the kitchen light. He looks at the paper bag. Blueberries, Elias says. For Caden, Gabriel says. All three of them, Elias says, but Caden mostly. Gabriel goes to the cabinet above the second counter. Mug, coffee machine. He presses start. He turns around and leans against the counter facing the room, not his back to it, facing it, and looks at Elias. I spoke to the house manager yesterday, Gabriel says. Elias keeps his hands on the bottle. Your contract is temporary, Gabriel says, 30-day placement. The coffee runs. Elias says nothing. That ends Thursday, Gabriel says. The bottle is ready, Elias lifts it, tests it on his wrist. Gabriel says, I want to change the arrangement. Elias looks at him. Gabriel is leaning against the counter with his mug and his not fully buttoned shirt and the morning light on his face, and he is looking at Elias with the specific, direct attention that he brings to things he has already decided. Not asking, informing, the way Gabriel does most things, decision first, announcement second, because the uncertainty was handled privately before the words arrived. But there is something else in the look, underneath the decided thing, the part that was not handled privately, that arrived here still unresolved, still open. Permanent placement, Gabriel says, full staff, whatever number makes sense. Elias is quiet. And Gabriel says, he pauses. Gabriel Voss does not pause. He does not leave spaces in his sentences for things he has not already prepared to fill. The pause is a visible, real thing, the first unguarded moment in a man who guards everything, whatever else makes sense. The coffee machine stops. The kitchen is quiet. From down the hall from the nursery, Omari's questions sound, 2 syllables, morning arriving. Gabriel's eyes go to the hallway, then back to Elias. Elias sets the bottle down. He picks up the paper bag of blueberries. He opens it slowly, and he sets 3 small portions on the counter, 1 larger, for Caden, 2 smaller, for Zaiah and Omari, because Elias has known the distribution for weeks and his hands know the amounts without measuring. He slides 1 portion toward the edge of the counter, where Gabriel is standing. Gabriel looks at it. Take that in, Elias says. To Omari, he'll be awake first. Gabriel picks up the blueberries. He looks at them in his hand, the small, specific, ordinary thing, and then he looks at Elias, and what is in his face is not a business decision or a contract term or a reasonable explanation. It is a person who has been shown how to stay in a room, and stayed, and found that staying was the thing he did not know how to want. Elias, Gabriel says. Go, Elias says, before Gabriel can produce the sentence that is forming. Before the thing becomes a word that requires a response, Elias is not ready to give at 5:22 in the morning. He's waiting. Gabriel goes. Elias hears him in the hallway, the nursery door, the specific sound of it opening quietly, the way you open a door when you have learned that the room on the other side has a temperature you do not want to disturb. He hears Omari's question sound. Then quiet. Then faint through the wall, through the door, through the 30 feet of penthouse between the kitchen and the nursery, a sound he has not heard before. Low, short, almost nothing. Gabriel laughing. Not the professional non-laugh of a man on a call. The real kind. The involuntary kind. The kind that comes out of a person when something small and specific, and completely unexpected, finds the exact right place. Elias stands in the kitchen. He looks at the counter where the blueberries were. He looks at the wooden rabbit, which is sitting on the kitchen windowsill. He moved it here last week to wash the crib linens and forgot to move it back, and Zaiah has not demanded its return because Zaiah decided, apparently, that the kitchen windowsill is an acceptable secondary location for the rabbit, and this decision was made without consultation and accepted without negotiation, which is very Zaiah. He looks at the rabbit for a long moment. Worn smooth at the ears, both eyes still on, the whole of it carrying the accumulated weight of being held and dropped and retrieved and held again, which is a specific kind of beauty that only things carried for a long time achieve. From the nursery, 3 voices, all different, all at once, the 3-part architecture of it but not crying, the other version, the morning version, the version that means everyone is awake and the day is here and there is a person in the room worth making noise for. Elias picks up the remaining 2 portions of blueberries. He picks up the rabbit from the windowsill. He walks down the hall. He opens the nursery door. Gabriel is on the floor. Caden is in his lap, already without ceremony, the way Caden does things. Omari is offering him blocks, one at a time, and Gabriel is taking them with the patient, present attention of a man who has finally learned that this is not a test he can prepare for. It is a practice. It requires only showing up and letting the room teach you. Zaiah is by the window. He turns when Elias enters. He holds out his hand. Elias crosses the room and places the rabbit in it. Zaiah takes it, presses it to his chest, and leans 2 centimeters, maybe 3, into Elias' leg. Elias stands at the window. Gabriel looks up from the floor. They look at each other over the heads of 3 small boys in the morning light of a Tuesday in Manhattan, and what passes between them is not a word, and not a gesture, and not any of the things that people use when they are trying to communicate something they have not yet learned the language for. It is the still count. Running. And on a Tuesday morning, in a penthouse on the 53rd floor of a building where the elevator requires a private key, with the city moving 40 stories below, and the Dior mobile turning, and the blueberries distributed, and a worn wooden rabbit held at a child's chest, the count reaches a number Elias stopped counting at. Because it is still going. Because some things, when they finally start, do not have a ceiling. The beginning was a man kneeling on cold marble, alone, humming one note in the dark. The end, if it is an end, is a room full of people who have learned that staying is not the thing you do after you decide to love someone. It is how you decide. If this story found you today, if something in these pages felt like something you have been carrying, share it. Leave a comment below about a moment when someone simply stayed, and it changed everything for you. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories on this channel that are built for the people who needed to hear them. Your presence here matters. Your story matters. See you in the next one.